Okay. V'zeh Perush. This is the explanation of a story of Rabbi Bar Chana from ancient of days. We are at the end of this Torah, thank God. This is the time when I would usually ask my students in Queens, I want to hear your Perush. Now I know what Noam's going to do because he probably already knows the end of the lesson, and he's going to pretend he doesn't know, and then he's going to explain the whole story according to what Rabbi Nachman's going to ultimately say. But I don't want to do that because that's not constructive. It just makes Noam look good, which goes against the whole lesson to begin with. So, if anybody doesn't know the end of this lesson, I'm going to tell you the story inside from the Gemara, pshat, simple. And then I want to hear, based on everything that we've learned from the beginning, hand clapping, dancing, the tzaddik emet, connecting to him, ruach, mitigating decrees, turning tefillah from the level of a mountain to a field, to a home, through this causing the non-Jewish world to realize that Hashem is great, through the ruach of the tzaddik entering into the Jew's heart and moving the ego, the arrogance out, and then it permeating through his hands and feet, which is Keneged, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, which is the revealed part of Shema, which is connected to revealed Torah, which is connected Mordechai Tzaddik, which is connected to the hands, and then you have Baruch Shem Kavod that you whisper, which is connected to the hidden Torah, which is connected to Esther, which is connected to the dancing of the feet. I'm just going through all the stuff that we did, okay? Up until Haman, representing the archetype of arrogance, him wanting to kill off the Jewish people, the first Adolf Hitler, Yimach Shemo, with that original plan, which actually Hitler studied while he was in prison and brought back to life in his own modern version of it, where Haman was the first person who ever had a thought to exterminate all the Jewish people in one time, as opposed to like a slow process of conversion or trying to exile them. No, he just wanted to kill all of them just like Hitler, okay? A lot of similarities between Haman and Hitler. Tov. But his whole thing was he came from a very lowly place. He was the dregs of existence. He had nothing to be proud or excited about with himself, and yet he had tremendous arrogance, okay? He represents the epitome of the ego. He comes from Amalek, right? Tov. And it's the power of Mordechai and Esther. It's the power of Sfirat HaOmer that causes Haman to be destroyed, that causes arrogance to go away. And what is it about Mordechai and Esther, the hands and the feet, hand clapping and dancing, that gets rid of all judgments, that gets rid of all arrogance? It's the ruach of the tzaddik that's possessing Mordechai and Esther. It's the ruach of the heart that's entering into the hands and the feet. And this was Haman's whole mistake, that he said, Moshe died. He died in this month. And therefore his ability, like we said in the last lesson, that Moshe is the same gematria as Charon Af, which means intense anger, which in Kabbalah, Charon Af means like the epitome of harsh decrees. Who is the antithesis of that? Who mitigates decrees? That's Moshe. Moshe is the opposite of Charon Af. Whereas Charon Af comes from what we learned was Avodah Zarah, but Rabbi Nachman is explaining in this lesson based on Chassidus that Avodah Zarah is just simply your ego, right? So who is the antithesis of ego? Moshe. Who's the one that causes the ego of a Jew to be nullified and the ruach of bittul to enter into him, but with besimcha, with happiness, with joy, with excitement? It's Moshe. And then through that, the heart of stone becomes the heart of flesh, and that ruach then extends into the hands and the feet, and you start to clap your hands, Mordechai, the revelation of Mordechai, and then Esther, the revelation of Esther, the feet, right? Revealed Torah, hidden Torah, and that's what destroys Haman. That's what we did so far. Now, based on all of that, I'm going to tell you the story. I see Noam's got this is the best. I told my wife, my son's kippah was like this while we were learning. And he goes, why are you doing that? I was like, listen, I have to explain something to you. It's something I noticed since I started doing Teshuvah. What is this phenomenon? I never heard anybody speaking about it. It was very clear to me when I started going to yeshiva, started learning. It's not a cultural thing. It's a siman that you are totally locked into what you're learning. And it happens as a completely natural phenomenon, but it's transcendent. And it's in every culture. It doesn't matter if you're Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Hasidic. If you're learning something and you're really into it, you will automatically, naturally go like this and start to push the thing. It's not monkey see, monkey do. I'm like, listen, this is not a Haredi thing that my son is doing. It means that Shiloh is really interested in what we're doing right now. It happens automatically. You just go like this and you don't know how it happens.
I'm trying to counterbalance I want to get into the vibe. I'm trying to counterbalance the gravity.
So I saw Noam already, and he loves it because he's Sephardic. So the chick, doing the bullet points, the usual thing I do, where like I drash for like 1,000 hours. I see it already. He's like immediately like, ooh, I like this. This is good. Yeah, let's go. Okay, so here is Paris, Rabbi Bar Chana. Let's see how it goes. Amar Rabbi Bar Chana. Amar li hahutaya. I saw an Arab. Oh, very interesting. Very modern story from 2,000 years ago. I saw an Islamic Arab merchant.
Not Islamic. Islam didn't exist.
No. We have to makasher the whole thing, to the present day. Tav achvele belui de Korach. He said to Rabbi Bar Chana, who was a great Talmid Chacham that lived in Eretz Yisrael, this Arab merchant came to him and said, "Come, let me show you the place where Korach was swallowed up in the ground." And just as a disclaimer for anybody who doesn't know, Korach was Moshe's family. Korach was a first cousin of Moshe Rabbeinu. Korach was older than Moshe. Korach was a Levi, just like Moshe was a Levi. Korach ended having Shmuel Navi descend from him. He misconstrued that as the fact that meant that he himself was destined for gadlut, for greatness.
Oh, I thought it was that room was swallowed up.
Slowly. Don't contradict me in the class while it's videotaping. Okay. I'm just kidding.
It's my mitzvah.
No. It's very important that you're whatever. Okay, the joke has been made already. So now, what happened with Korach? Korach said about Moshe, I don't understand. Like in the beginning, it was cool. You came and you told everybody, like, we're leaving Mitzrayim. Great, you did it. Like, kol hakavod, you saved us from Egypt, from slavery. Good. But you told us, Hashem told us, that the Jewish people are all kodesh. We're all holy. I'm part of the same exact family as you are. And yet, with every single position that is being brought into the fold, whether it's to be the Kohen Gadol, or whether it's to be the builder of the Mishkan, whether it's whatever it is, you keep giving it only to you and your brother. Why only you and your brother? We're all holy. We're all Kodesh. And I'm in your family. So what is this whole nepotism thing where you're just keeping it just between, and you're bringing up like through the veil of your humility? Oh, it's not about me. It's only about Hashem. It's not about it's all about the Jewish people. And yet it seems like with every kavod, every honor, every top position, it just goes to you and your brother. It's a little bit of a stira, no? Korach had a big problem with this. He became very jealous. And he ended up getting 250 men from the tribe of Reuven. And with them, there was a revolt. And in this revolt, they came to Moshe. And Hashem told Moshe, why don't we throw the gauntlet down? Let's have Moshe, you and Aaron, you'll be on one side. They'll come with their thing. You'll be your thing. It's like in South Park, like where they had the dance-off, So this is like this is like the Kodesh version of that. But it's like, let's have a dance-off and see who's where, right? So this was the holy dance-off from thousands of years ago. And what ended up happening was that Korach and his followers were swallowed up in the ground while they were alive, okay? So this is what it's speaking about. So this is an amazing story. Imagine Rabbi Bar Chana, he knows this story. And imagine an Islamic merchant comes to you, an Arab merchant comes to you, and he says to you, like in the middle of your learning, you're like, you need a lunch break. No, come, I want to show you really cool. I know where Korach is swallowed up in the ground. I can show you. So Rabbi Chana is like, Gavalt, that's sick. I want to see that. So he goes with him. Of course he goes with him. Asli, right away, it says, we go. Show me that there were two cracks in the ground, and from out of those two cracks, there was smoke coming out of there. Shekal Gevava da Amra. So the Arab merchant, he took a No, he took like a wad. He took a wad of sheep's wool. He took a wad of sheep's wool, umashe b'maya, and he soaked it in water. Va'anche b'reisha derumcha, and he placed it at the head of a spear. Va'ayaleatam, and then he stuck it in the crack. V'chiapik have ichrach ichruche, and when he took it out, it was entirely scorched. Amarle, he said to me, Atzit ma shema'it. Pay close attention and listen to, you can hear what they're saying because they were swallowed alive. They're still alive down there. Listen to what they're saying. V'shimei tahave amrin. So Rabbi Baruch Chana went over and he went to go listen. He put his head to the ground and he's listening carefully. And what were they saying? Moshe v'Torah emet. Moshe is the truth and his Torah is the truth. V'hein b'dayin. And we are false. Amarli, he said to me, Kol shaloshim yom mahadre lahu geonom lahacha kibasar bekalachat. Every 30 days, Hashem brings them back from Gehenna like meat in a pot. Va'amra hachi, and what do they say every 30 days? Which the Rashbam says is Rosh Chodesh. Every 30 days, they come back on Rosh Chodesh. And they say, V'amru hachi, Moshe v'Torah emet. Moshe is the truth, and his Torah is the truth. V'hein b'dayin, and we're false. We were wrong. Tov. Let's hear your Perush. Based on everything that we learned. Go ahead. Don't worry about being wrong. Don't worry about being embarrassed. I'm only taking video evidence, audio evidence. That way we can always, when you guys get married, Bezrat Hashem, we could show this to you after you get married, your wife, your kids. Always will be on the...
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So, go ahead. Any part of it. You don't have to do the whole thing. Is there any elements of this?
Oh.
Go ahead.
I know that the heat
Yeah.
is the opposite of the ruach.
Okay.
And the heat is them with the lack of ruach, because he was against the tzaddik.
Who?
Korach.
Korach was
That's
against the
why he
tzaddik.
got scorched.
And he tried to offer a fire offering.
He tried out for a fire.
Okay. Nice. What else you got? You can't just wear like really cool Hasidic garb. You have to have really cool Hasidic Hiddushim also.
I'm wearing jeans, don't look at me.
No. Don't worry, I'm gonna pressure you. It's getting hot in here. I gotta take this thing off. Anything else? No, you already know.
I don't know, nothing.
Okay, so go ahead.
Thank you.
Don't think so much. Should be coming off the gut. I had 16-year-old boys when I was teaching them in Queens. This was their first class. They didn't come from the beginning, and they're drushing the whole thing. Are you guys not doing it? Let's go.
Based on the
I just gave you the whole. I just gave you the rundown. I gave you every bechina, every concept that we learned in a nutshell. We just did it, mamish rapid fire. Come on, connect some things. Mordechai, Esther, hidden Torah, revealed Torah, Sfirat HaOmer, Haman, no Purim. Clapping of the hands, dancing of the feet, nitty-gritty decrees. Let's go. You don't see that in this thing? It's not explicit to you? It's not... the whole thing is not klar, It's like...
Oh, yeah. Man, we over the hill in that time.
I wish cake was good. You were just a Darius,
Okay, listen. It's a good thing we're opening up this Breslov yeshiva. That's right. This is what it's all about. We got to make sure you guys are prepared for the real world. That doesn't mean, getting a degree at college. It means I need to be able to explain this story from Bava Batra according to Rabbi Nachman's Torah, 10 Torah, and Moharan. That's real life. Tov? Okay, so let's hear Rabbeinu explain it. That was very, very disappointing, piss poor. It's a good thing that nobody's seeing your side of it. So,
I didn't say my name though.
yeah, but thank
You're already
God.
married, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
You don't have nothing to worry about.
Hey, but I gotta marry off my daughter.
Okay, Biluit to Korach. This is the place that Korach was swallowed. Like it's brought in the Midrash, Rabbi Nachman says. Korach min haya. Korach, not only was he against Moshe because he was jealous, he actually didn't believe that the Torah was true. And what was the examples that they were giving? Because after his jealousy, which again, remember, what are we saying from the beginning? It comes from arrogance. The person in the beginning, not only does he not want to go to the tzaddik to have him pray for him because he thinks he himself can pray for himself, but he stops other people from going as well. And Rabbi Nachman explains, well, where is that coming from? It's actually coming from a lack of emunah. It's coming from disbelief because emunah is with the tzaddik. So if somebody is mechalek against the tzaddik, it's really a window into his lack of emunah. Because the Emunah is with the tzaddik. Sarah is always with Abraham. Emunah is always with the tzaddik. Malchut, Emunah is always with the Yisod. I know I'm throwing a lot of things, but you guys are now professionals. We've been talking about these things a lot. Hopefully, it's not all going over the head.
Emunah is always with the Yisod.
Emunah is always with the Yisod because the Malchut is always with the Yisod. That's the whole ikr. By the way, you should know this is the entire ikr of Likutey Moharan. And like if someone asks you what's the chiddush of Rabbi Nachman, it's not that he said something that nobody else said. It was just a very clear principle for him that everybody in Kabbalah, anyone who knows Kabbalah, knows this thing. That Malchut and Yesod are like husband and wife, and they're destined for each other. They don't leave each other. The Malchut receives from Yesod. Yesod gives to the Malchut, just like the male body part gives to the female body part. Okay? Who is she destined for? Her husband is the male body part. So who is the male body part? That's the tzaddik. And who is the female body part? That's Emunah. Emunah has no light of its own. The Malchut has no light of its own. Where does it get its light from? The
Ramach is the spear is a little bit like a Yisod.
Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. There you go. There you go. Yeah, you did a better job than the Bukharians when I was there. As soon as I said that there was two cracks and there was smoke coming out, they had a whole field there with the two cracks. Yeah, but they had thinking about different types of cracks than you guys are talking about right now. Thank God. I have a very mature student base. Obviously, everyone has the mental acuity and maturity of like 5-year-olds. Very good. Also a good reflection of me. Tov. Anything else you got?
I think I'm keeping my mouth shut.
You put the water is at the top of the mayim is on the top of the Ramach.
Okay. And what's that? You just
Torah, Moshe.
Okay.
I mean, I know the Ruach Man because I remember it.
And what about the fact that it's made out of wool? Sheep's wool. Sheep's wool is called in Aramaic omra. Anyway. Trying to hint at things. Okay, Tov. So Korach, he was actually a mean. How do we know? Because as soon as he got jealous, how did he try to mock Moshe and have people question his legitimacy as a Torah authority?
It had two things, which is like a tzere.
He asked him halachic questions.
Sorry, I'm just
Yeah, he asked him halachic questions. Korach did.
With the tzitzis.
Yeah, with the tzitzis, right? Trying to prove that Moshe wasn't what he said he was, right? We can't rely on Torah to be this authority, right? The questions have to be in the area that people think that he excels in, because Korach was a very big Talmid Chacham. The problem was that his jealousy was a window into his ego, and an ego and Emunah, they're opposite entities. It's like a magnet with like plus and minus, right? They go in two different ways. So the more ego that there is, the less Emunah you have. And I'm not talking about what clothes you wear. I'm not talking about the external mitzvot that you do. It's something that's very internal and very, very, very panimi, something very central.
And that's why I said Haman is ego.
And it also said that Haman was a
Russian.
A min, also was a min.
What?
Min means someone who doesn't believe that the Torah is true. Right? They go together. These two things go together. Meaning, how do we get the whole world to believe in God? It's with the liquidation of ego. That's what I told you guys, that Chassidus teaches that what's the Korach of Mashiach? The Korach of Mashiach is that he's going to get everybody to want to mevatel their ego.
Is that called a Noah, or is that you're saying now it's
That's
Emunah, or they're connected?
They are one and the same thing.
Emunah and Emunah is the same thing?
Yeah, they go to, the more anava you get, the closer you are to Emunah. The closer to Emunah you are, the closer to humility you are. They go hand in hand. And the ruach of the tzaddik is what pushes out your ego from your heart. And the more that the ego gets pushed out from the heart, the more that the ruach of humility enters, and the closer you are to Emunah, to faith.
So is another also like Malchus?
It's connected very deeply. Yes.
So how's it connected to Netzach?
Don't go with the Netzach yet. You got hold it here. The idea is very simple like this. Why does Rabbi Nachman say everything is dependent on Hikashu to the tzaddik? He's talking about a spherotic principle, which is that Malchut only is rectified by being connected to the Yisod. And Malchut represents Klal Yisrael in general. Right? Malchut, as represented in the physical world, is what the Zohar calls Knesset Yisrael, which is really the body of the Jewish people, but on a soul level represents the Shekhinah, which is the Jewish people. The Jewish people are the Shekhinah, the living presence of God, is the Jewish people in the world. Right? But the Shekhinah is in exile as long as it's not attached to her husband. And who is the husband of the Shekhinah? Moshe, the tzaddik. Right? Yaakov's wife was Rachel. Rachel in Kabbalah is the Shekhinah. She's Malchut. Yaakov's the tzaddik. Moshe Rabbeinu, his wife is Tzipporah. She's also the Shekhinah. And when Tzipporah goes out and he's no longer with his spouse, why isn't he with his spouse anymore? So he can always commune with God. The Zohar says, what does it mean he can always commune with God? It's because, so to speak, he was now married to the Shekhinah from now on. That's his wife. So wherever you saw Moshe, you saw the Shekhinah, meaning wherever you see this Yesod, you see the Malchut. So by attaching yourself to the Yesod, you also get the Malchut, meaning the lost princess. It's with the Tzaddik. Tov. It's in Austria. You gotta go to Austria to find what's always been inside of you. A lot of different things going on here. Okay? But anyway, Korach was a min. Haya bechinat avodah eliyim, meaning he worshipped foreign gods. Minut. That's what ego is. That's what atheism is. That's what disbelief is. We think it's some type of secular reality, but the secular reality, or this phenomenon that is, the majority of the world now doesn't believe in this entity, that whole thought process actually is rooted in, even if it's thousands of years ago, ego. Ego. And once the ego is eliminated, it's like very pashut to you that God exists. It's not what people think it is. That's the reason why when Bal Teshuvah, you think you have to convince them intellectually. But all of these intellectual questions and stiras and problems, that's not the holdup. Ultimately, it's not the holdup.
It's just the ego.
Yeah, that's it.
That's why a lot of times people who've had experiences with drugs can a lot of times more easily get tapped into the.
That's right.
Because they just.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you feel?
No, that's good.
It kind of nullifies the ego, so then you can almost immediately from many people can just experience just.
That's right.
Some godly experience.
That's right.
Not the most kosher, but
yes,
in the right direction.
That's exactly right. That's a very good point. Okay, and that's why the more effective thing is to bring them to Uman. Why? Because as soon as you go to Uman, you're absorbed in this crowd of people who are looking for truth, and in that place, it's an environment that easily melts away the ego, and you're literally by the tzaddik. So you feel, by being close to him, it's much easier for it just to go away. That's the Korach of Moshe. He gets you to nullify your ego, to actually want to. He showed me 2 cracks in the ground where smoke was coming out. This is the concept of charon af. This is the concept of anger. Shegormim b'minut. Where is this divine anger from, which is where all decrees are coming from? That's where this war is coming from. That's where the captured victims are coming from. That's where all the issues with Iran are coming from. That's where all these things with Gaza, these are all decrees. The decrees from heaven. Why are they coming? They're coming because of what's called charon af, divine anger. Why is there divine anger? Because Chazal said, wherever you see avodah zarah, there's charon af. So you say, but nobody's worshiping foreign gods. That's if you think foreign gods only means a statue. But when you realize that foreign gods literally means worship of self, so then you see, well, this has never been widespread over the world.
Anything that's not Hashem. What is
Right.
And the charuch, whatever that is, that singe sounds like charon af.
Oh, Like Chazal say, Kol zeman she'avodat elolim ba'olam, as long as there is avodah zarah in the world, charon af ba'olam, charon af is in the world. But like we just said, well, what's the counter to charon af, which is Gematria 345? Moshe, Gematria 345. Moshe is the antidote. Utrei bizeh zeh bechino trei nikvei af. That's the reason why smoke was coming out of two cracks in the ground. Why? Because how do you think of someone who's like really angry? If you watch the cartoon, how would they depict that? Smoke coming out of both nostrils. It's going out smoke, like the pasuk says, Allah shan ba'po, goes out smoke from his nose. This is also alluding to a very deep secret in Kabbalah that all dinim come from the nostrils, from the higher sfirot, whatever. So anyway, those judgments are being reflected through the smoke coming from the nose, the charon af. B'shakil gava da amra, he took a wad of wool, which again, the word for wool is amra, which is very close linguistically to omer. Omer, Rabbi Nachman says, this is a concept of Sfirat Omer. Umashe, which we said before, what's Omer? Omer is ayin mar. Right? What did we say ayin is? The 70 faces of the Torah. What's mar? We said mar is Gematria 240, which is the same Gematria as Amalek. What is this referring to? This is referring to Mordechai. Because Mordechai represents revealed Torah. How many faces of Torah are there? There's 70 faces of revealed Torah. Okay? So therefore, what's the Omer? The Omer, which is what Mordechai was learning when Haman came to see him, is Mordechai. That's why he was teaching it to him, because of the power of Mordechai, meaning the power of revealed Torah, meaning the power of hand clapping. That mitigates decrees. Okay? So this was the wad of wool that he put. He took hand clapping, or he took Mordechai, or he took revealed Torah, and then what did he do? He soaked it in water. Zebechina Seorim. This is the other half of it's Omer Seorim. What is Sfirat Omer? It is the Omer offering of Seorim. That means the barley offering, right? What's the barley? Bechinat Esther. So as opposed to Omer, which represents Mordechai, which is the sacrifice itself, then you have what you're sacrificing, which is the barley. Why is the barley connected to Esther? So first of all, if you look at the 7 fruits of Israel that you have to make a special bracha for, and you have a special bracha after for, what are the 7 fruits of Israel? You have chita, which is wheat. You have barley. You have grapes or wine. You have figs. You have pomegranates. You have olives or olive oil. And you have dates or date honey, right? Those 7, according to Kabbalah, the Rizal teaches, they're connected to the 7 lower sfirot. In which case, wheat is chesed, barley is gevura, grapes are tiferet, wine is tiferet, and figs are netzach, pomegranates are hod, olives are yesod, right? And the davash is the honey of the dates, or dates itself. This is malchut. Okay? Now, why am I telling you all that? Because what's Esther connected to? She's connected to Seorim, which is barley. Right? She's Gevurah. Whereas the male in Kabbalah represents the right side, which is the side of Chesed. The female represents the left side, which is the side of Gevurah. Now, really, what we're going to see, it's Mordechai and Esther uniting, meaning it's revealed in hidden Torah. Uniting, meaning it's hand clapping and dancing. Uniting. That's what nullifies all decrees. It's not just that you're doing this or you're doing this. It's bedavka that these two things are coming together. And this is the Kabbalistic Yesod, foundation of why Mordechai and Esther bring the Geula. It's bedavka because, like the Zohar says and like it says in Masechet Megillah, they're married. It's the uniting of these two entities. Meaning it's the uniting of this wool with this water. So these two things, which seemingly should not come together, they are now uniting, and that's what's capable of bringing the Geula. So now why, again, is this water connected to Esther, and why is it connected to barley? Because Esther, Beruach HaKodesh, the concept of Esther is with Ruach HaKodesh. She wrote the entire Megillah, right? She has Ruach in her, the Ruach of the Tzaddik. The Ruach of Moshe is in Esther, and with that she wrote Megillat Esther. Bechinat Raglayan, she represents the feet. Why? Because the feet, they are Afikei Mayim. They are the brooks of water. Now in Kabbalah, the brooks of water represent Netzach and Hod. What are Netzach and Hod? Very often Netzach and Hod in the male paradigm represent actually the two testicles. Okay? But within, in general, Bichlal, what is Netzach and Hod within the human body?
Legs.
The legs. And very specifically, and very often, they are compared to the right and the left foot. So in this case, the right foot is Netzach, and the left foot is Hod. And we're saying Esther represents the feet. So you're dancing, which is Esther. This is the brooks of water. Why are they the brooks of water? Because they're the Netzach and Hod. Okay? Ki hem bechinat arvei nachal, because they represent the willow, the stream, the willow stream. Okay? Kamamar chachmenu zichronan l'racha, like it says in Masechet Sukkah Nun Gimel, raglo he davar nash inun arvin le. A person's legs, they're their guarantor. Right? When you go get an apartment, you need a guarantor to make sure you can have the apartment, the person feels comfortable as the leaser giving it to you. You need someone who can say, we guarantee that if the person doesn't have enough money to pay for his rent at the end of the month, I have it. That's your guarantor. So the sages teach, well, what's your guarantor in life? Your legs. Why? Because you stand on them. Okay? But that's when they're functioning properly, meaning when they're above the klipot, meaning when you're dancing. So you're going to say, what does dancing have to do with being above the klipot? Because the floor represents death.
And the Isha.
And the pasuk says that her legs descend to death, and it's speaking kabbalistically about the sphere of Malchut, which in this case is Esther. Her feet descend to death. Why? Because the power of Malchut is that she's right above the klipot, the forces of negativity. But that's also her vulnerability. She's the most vulnerable to getting captured, just like Sarah got captured, right? Just like Esther got captured. Why are these female figures always getting captured in the Torah? Because they're always malchut, right? Right. And the klipot are capturing them because they're right above the. But when they come out, they have the greatest koach to destroy everything in the area of the klipot.
Just like Yoshua.
Right. Exactly. Just like Yoshua in the 6th Torah Likutey. Right. Exactly. And that's Rav Natan's whole inyan, by the way. That's his koach. Whereas Rabbi Nachman is obviously, it's the whole thing is Rabbi Nachman, but he's really primarily dealing with the heads of the Jewish world. Whereas Rav Natan is busy trying to lift up the dregs of the Jewish world, which in our case is us, the Bali Teshuvah and the Geri. Okay, which is not the dregs really how Hashem looks at us, but meaning in terms of the spectrum, because we're the closest to the floor, which is also part of our greatness, and Mashiach is included in there, right? But that was Rav Natan's whole thing. And if you see like Rav Natan's life, that's what he was busy doing. Rabbi Nachman had to like tell him at times not to, like very often actually, because Rav Natan was constantly trying to help poor people. He was constantly trying to help oppressed people. He would constantly invite people over his home for Shabbat that were like very poor and very decrepit and like even drunk and his kids were like Abba, like it's not comfortable for us that you keep inviting strangers over who are like not well, it's his wife didn't like it, the kids didn't like it, but he's like, this is what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to take care of the lowest, most oppressed parts of society. And this is actually the one time that it's recorded that Rav Natan actually, his son left the table on Shabbat because he couldn't take the smell or something. It was just like, I can't. Got up from the table. Rav Natan was so furious with him that he embarrassed the guest, or he thought he embarrassed the guest, and obviously he got up. So Rav Natan actually gave him a patch. And it's in Yemei Moranot. Yeah, and then Rav Natan came to Rabbi Nachman after, and he asked him about it, and he told him what happened, thinking that Rabbi Nachman was going to tell him, you were right, and you're right in having these people over. Don't worry about what your wife says and your kids say with this. You got to do what you have to. Like he always told Rav Natan, like it's you and Hashem. And he said, first of all, who told you you're allowed to hit your kid? Yeah. He said, first of all, who told you you should hit your son? Which is crazy because it's like it goes 200 years ago, and it's not even necessarily like pshat in the Torah not to. It's like you would probably learn from that the other way. Yeah. So it was like that was like so Rav Natan right away he was like
in the sphere, like you don't tell me it's like Allah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he said, first of all, who said you're allowed to hit your kid? So then right away Rav Natan was like, oh my gosh. And then right after that, and he said, and why are you inviting those people over for Shabbat? He goes, what do you mean? But the Shem, he goes, that's not what Shabbat is for. During the week, you go help those people. On Shabbat, you should be having really, as chashuv guests as you can have over. Yeah. But again, you never know when Rabbi Nachman says something to somebody, was he just talking to Rav Natan, meaning maybe he would have told somebody else something different, right? So it's hard to always draw a cloth for. But it was this that Rabbi Nachman this was Rav Natan's nature, was to want to help those people who were lowest, right? This is bared out in many places, Likutey, and Rabbi Nachman was like mechaven to this, that he would allude to Rav Natan that this is your bechina. Even the pasuk which says that, and those who are buried in the ground are going to arise and waken, which is talking about Techiyat HaMeitim, right? They're going to arise from the dust. Rabbi Nachman says in the second Tinyan of Likutey Moharan, it's Roshei Tevot Yehoshua. Which the pasuk, the famous pasuk, which is awaken, arise, and sing from the dust. I have to find the pasuk for you, but it's like a direct allusion to Techiyat HaMeitim, that the dead will arise, right? But when we think of the dead arising, we're thinking about the future. But according to Rabbi Nachman, a person who's sad is dead. A person who's spiritually disconnected from God is dead. A person who's angry is dead. A person who's poor is dead. Anybody who's oppressed is dead. Right? All this is bechin of a death. This is Rav Natan was busy telling them, like in the sixth Torah, Hashem is with you. Right? That was his whole thing. Rabbi Nachman is trying to show the people who feel that they've already figured it out, that they don't know anything. And Rav Natan was trying to show people who felt like they were nothing, that they were really, really, really close and they just have to hold on. Right? And obviously, where did Rav Natan get that Korach from? He got it from Rabbi Nachman, but that was his inyan. Tov. Okay. Mordechai and Esther. Her feet is sent to death. Arvin zebechinad arvei nacha. And these guarantors, this is the concept of the willows of the stream. Afike mayim, the brooks of the water. Hayanu bechinad Mordechai and Esther. So in this case, the water represents Esther, and the wool, meaning the Omer, this represents Mordechai. By putting them together and sticking them in, this is the concept of the hands and the feet, meaning hand clapping and dancing. And he placed on the head of the spear. What's the spear? Romach. So it's a very famous Zohar. Rabbi Nachman alludes to it multiple times in the Likutey Moharan. Romach da ruach mem. I believe it's in the Parshat Pinchas in the Zohar, but I could be wrong.
Makes sense.
Yeah? Thank you, I appreciate that. It was good, I'll pay you after. So the ruach mem, right? Why is ruach mem, the Zohar darshans like that? Because the word romach, if you flip the letters, if you separate the mem out, it actually spells ruach mem. What's the mem? Mem is a square, so it's got four sides. So the pasuk says, Ma'arba ruchot bo'ei ruach. From the four directions comes the ruach. So in this case, what's the four directions? That's the mem, comes the ruach. So this whole pasuk is alluding to, from the four directions, meaning from the mem, from the four sides of the mem, bo'ei ruach, comes the ruach. Okay, so what's the mem? The mem is always Torah. The mem is gematria 40, the 40 seah of the mikveh, right? The 40 days and the 40 nights that Moshe Rabbeinu gets the Torah. The mem is the first letter of Moshe's name, right? He's the giver, right? Everything with the mem has to do with Torah. Everything with the mem has to do, and now what does it do for him? It gives him ruach, the tzaddik, right? So the ruach of the tzaddik combined with the mem, that's the spear. This is the arba ruchot. The mem represents the four directions. It's a concept of the ruach of the tzaddik. The nashi biyadayin raglayin, and that ruach of the tzaddik blows into the hands and the feet, like we said. Meaning, what is it that's giving koach to that wad of wool, which represents Mordechai, the hands, and to that water, which represents Esther, the feet? What gives it the koach to go down into Korach, meaning to go down into the judgments to sweeten them? It's the ruach of the tzaddik, meaning it's the romach, it's the spear, the ruach mem. It's Moshe, the mem, and it's his ruach that's funneling into the hands and the feet, that's allowing them to mitigate the degrees through hand clapping and dancing. V'rosh romach, and what's the head of the spear? Hu tzaddik. So the actual spear represents his ruach, and the head of the spear represents the tzaddik himself. Because going out from the tzaddik is the ruach. One second. Like the pasuk says, Ish asher ruach bo. Like when Moshe was determining, or Hashem was determining that Moshe was not going to be the one to let them into Eretz Yisrael, and he said that Yoshua is going to replace you, or someone's going to replace you, Moshe responded back, just make sure there's ruach in him. Meaning this is the ikar of being the tzaddik. He needs to have this ruach. Why? Because it's the ruach that allows the tzaddik to counter charon af, to counter decrees, to mitigate decrees, to absolve the Jewish people of ego, and through that to bring them emunah. It's his ruach, which obviously comes from his brit, okay, which is for another time. And now this spear became scorched. This word scorched, ichrach, lashon chayim v'arichut yamim. It's the lashon of life and length of days. Like Chazal say, Masechet Erevin, lo yacharoch rami etzedo. A slothful person will not catch his prey. Meaning a person who's lazy is not going to be able to hunt and then catch his prey. What's this pasuk alluding to? This word which is, he won't be able to... one second. He won't be able to catch. The word catch is related to the word arichut, which means lengthen. Okay? His prey. Lo yichya, meaning he won't be alive, lo yarich, and won't lengthen his days. Lashon Chaim, this is the Lashon of Chaim, arichut yamin, length of days. Ki ayde bital gava, because through the nullification of ego, haino, meaning avodah zar, through this, the chokhmah is rectified, is on her tikkun. Right? Because what did we say in the beginning of the lesson? That Chazal say, I believe it's in Masechet Sota, that a person who is arrogant will lose his wisdom. Now, who's the one who introduced the wisdom of God into the world? Moshe. Okay? What gave Moshe the koach to draw such wisdom?
Humility.
Who was Moshe's rabbi? Yeah, so then, okay, great. So that even adds to the kasha. He doesn't have a rabbi, and yet he's the one who draws down the entire Torah in its fullness. Like the entire revelation of the Torah comes through Moshe, and yet Moshe had no rabbi. How is he so connected to God that he had such a pure vessel of transmission that he could receive the entire Torah, the entire revelation of God's wisdom in this world? What was it about Moshe? His humility. And what do we say? The more humility you have, the closer you are to God. What does it mean? The closer you are to God's wisdom. It says that Chokhmah me'ayin titza'eh, that from wisdom, from nothing comes out. Now in Kabbalah, nothing represents the keter. So while we said anava is malchutish, but the malchut is also the keter. That's for a different class. But the beginning is the end.
So what?
The Reshit is the Achrona as well.
What
So
about
one second. It's all coming. It's all being drawn from humility.
And
It's all being drawn from humility. Yirat Shamayim comes from humility. Emunah comes from humility. Wisdom comes from humility. All of it comes from humility. Okay? So humility is what draws wisdom. Chokhmah, wisdom, comes out of nothing. Meaning...
I just have a huge thing from
Okay, wisdom, meaning wisdom, the wisdom of God, your ability to be a vessel to receive it, it comes from your concept of ayin. Meaning to the degree that you have made yourself no thing, right? Meaning ayin, keter, to that degree, chokhmah comes out. Why? Because like we spoke about in the past, the sefirot give birth to each other. So keter gives birth to chokhmah, meaning very simply, ayin, nothing, gives birth to wisdom. So how did Moshe get to such godly wisdom? Because he was nothing. He was so nothing that he was able to give birth to the wisdom of God in this world. Okay? What's the opposite of that? Arrogance, ego. So the degree to which a person has ego, to that degree he's not connected to the Keter, and to that degree wisdom eludes him, meaning the wisdom of God, he can't find it. Okay? And then he not only does he not find it, he opposes it. Whoever does have it, he thinks that guy is a crazy cult leader. Or he thinks that person is trying to have a play on power. Now, why does he think that? Because he's projecting his own inner reality on the person who actually does. Because that's how he sees life. He sees life as dog eat dog. Because he's so invested in his ego. He thinks that that's the way it must work for everybody. That's the reason why everybody misunderstood Rabbi Nachman. That's the reason why everybody misunderstood Moshe. That's the reason why everybody misunderstood Yosef. That's the reason why everybody misunderstood David. Because when they saw them, they assumed their inner world, their thought process, their motives must be the same as mine. And that's the prism through which I see all of their comments, all of their questioning, all of their reactions, all of their remarks. And this is why Rav Natan brings this unbelievable drush in the beginning of Likutey, that why are we saying that Yosef is 17? Why is that so important that we need to know that Yosef is 17? Because he's essentially Gematria 17, which is Gematria Tov. And meaning, as opposed to Yosef's brothers, that they were mostly good, Yosef was only good.
And the Hiddush of being good.
The Hiddush of being good is being connected to God. Because there is no good beside the Torah. Meaning, so it's that humility that brings you to only good. So what happened when people saw Yosef talking about these grandiose dreams? That's how they interpreted it. Meaning, this is a power play. Yosef is trying to assert his power. That's what they said. They said, what, do you want to be king over us? You want to rule over us? And Yosef was actually very simply just conveying the dreams that he had to them. Now, obviously, those dreams were about power, and they were about the fact that Yosef was going to be the leader over all of them. But he wasn't saying it in order so that something. It's like many times people will come up to me and like, when you said that, what did you mean by that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, when you said that, what do you really mean by that? I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, what were you trying to say when you said that? I was like, I wasn't trying to say anything. I meant what I said. Whatever I said, that's what I meant. Whatever I said, that was in my head. And when I say something, I'm not trying to do something by saying it so that you have some... but that's the way that this person is living his life. He's constantly saying things while trying to have some other effect take place. So what is he doing? He's projecting that on me. That's the way he's operated in his life. So he assumes if I'm saying very intense statements and I'm saying it with a lot of fire and I'm trying to influence people in whatever way, it must be he's trying to do something. He's trying to say something different than whatever he's saying. And I literally had no idea what he was talking about. And it was like really hard to us to come to like whatever. And then like I told him, I was like, listen, I really don't want to offend you. Can I say something completely honest? And he said, yeah, absolutely, go for it. I was like, I know you think that I'm emanating something to you and it's bringing up feelings for you that I'm like trying to do something, but I'm almost positive they're coming from you.
I mean, let's say you're telling let's say you're telling a story about some cute story. In your mind, you're saying, let's say you talk to some secular crowd of guys. You're hoping somewhere in there, hope they get the message that they all become raving froom and start clapping and dancing and love Hashem.
No.
You kidding me?
No.
I would think that that's sort of in there.
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
I definitely pray for them that they should get there, and I pray to Hashem to give me words to say when I do it. But I literally just mean whatever I'm saying. You know, like, it's happened quite often. I had a student who was very close to me in Queens, and he would see this happen all the time. I would give a divrei Torah, and you know, I'm very passionate, and like, this is like me, like, just us three, it's like watered down. Like if you see me with like a group of people and like we're all together, you see it's like really fiery. And a lot of people, if it's their first time seeing it, there's something is emoted from that. Something comes up from that. And for a lot of people, it's like, what does David think he is, or who does David think he is? And I don't think anything of myself. I don't think I'm happy to be living right now. Like I don't think nothing of myself. Which is why I speak so passionately, because I'm not thinking about myself. But for that person, it must be like he's trying to do something. Yeah. So,
I know you don't want to, no, just hold the lesson, but the way that Malchus is connected to the next level of the Kesser, like Malchus at the Kesser of each Olam or Kesser, but either way you want to connect it.
Yeah.
So it fits very nicely with, we have two psukim, that it's Ekev Anava Yiras Hashem and Riz Chacham Yiras Hashem. And the Ekev, the heel of Anava, the bottom of the Malchus is Yiras Hashem, and also the Riz Chacham, the Kesser of Chachma, the highest part is Yiras Hashem. So Yiras Hashem is in between that connection. It seems like Mistama. So I'm just curious, can we explore what the heck that is on any level? Like, what is Yiras Hashem? What does the pasuk mean?
Yeah. So it goes back to what we spoke about in the past when it comes to Partsufim. In different Partsufim, different Sfirot take on different roles. So very simply, the Rizal teaches in Eitz Chaim, Pri-Eitz Chaim, all the Kiferi, that the Malchut of the higher world becomes the Keter of the lower world. Always.
Is there anything in between that, or it's just the next slot on the chain?
Always the Malchut of the higher world becomes the Keter of the lower world.
It itself becomes.
Right.
It itself becomes, okay? And that's constantly what takes place, okay? So therefore, why, now this is on a very simple level, why is the lowest in the Torah always become the highest? Why is it that the person who is oppressed and despised and he's alienated by his brothers and everyone mocks him and makes fun of him, why is that person David? Why is that person Yosef? Why is that person Moshe? Why is he always the one who becomes the greatest? Because they embody the Malchut the most, the Shiflut, and then they become the Keter. They become the crown. They become the head. Okay? This is also the reason.
About Gidon, I think it was.
What's the
Yiftach or Gidon, I forget who it was.
What's the the catalyst being Yiras Hashem? Like,
Or which part? How does Malchut become the Keter of the next world?
I'm saying the word Yiras Hashem. It says Yiras Hashem, and Rabbeinu has a whole thing about you have to have Yira before you can do anything.
Yeah.
You know, but he also says you have to have Simcha and that. So, but he said in the beginning with like Siyos around, you have to have Yira. It's very, very important to have. Even Pashut Yiras Hayinish.
Yeah.
And there's different levels. Yiras Hashem may be different than Yiras Hayinish. I mean, maybe, but what it sounds like that's like a very fundamental thing. It's like
If you read any lesson in Likutey Moharan, you're going to come out thinking that this is the Eker. No, it's very important to know because a lot of people get stuck on this because they like Rabbi Nachman says the main thing is Ratzon.
Right.
Will main thing is Yirot Shamayim. Main thing is Avat Hashem. Main thing is Simcha. Main thing is Emunah. Main thing is Bittul. Main thing is Teshuvah. So people will say that and then go, like, that's the main that I have to get. But if you learn other lessons, you'll also see that might be the hardest thing to ever get to, right? So, like, just as a very basic instance in terms of Yirat Shamayim, right? There's a Gemara which Rabbi Nachman refers to when he speaks in the 5th Torah, Likutey Moharan, where he's speaking about Yirat Shamayim, and the whole Torah is about Yirat Shamayim. And he says that for Moshe Rabbeinu, Yirat Shamayim is a very small thing, but for everybody else, it's a very big thing. Meaning, it wasn't hard for Moshe to cultivate and develop Yirat Shamayim. It was something that came very natural to him. That's also very deep. It's based on Kabbalah because he represents the sphere of Da'at, and Yira and Ava, they're both encompassed within Da'at, and therefore love of Hashem and all of Hashem come very easily for him. But for us, that we're not like that. We are more Malchut types of souls, so we have to acquire those things, and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of cultivation, it takes a lot of tefillah, it takes a lot of learning, it takes a lot of rising and falling. So for us, it's not easy to get to Yirat Shamayim. So even though, yes, you need Yirat Shamayim, like Rabbi Nachman says, at a very basic level to really do anything, but who says that thing is something you can just like, okay, so let me start there. It could be you spend 20 years trying to get to that thing.
It's like Kol B'dei Shamayim, Chutz Minas Shamayim. So other things are just given to you, but this seems like something, maybe it's like Bechira, or it's like, I don't know how it plays in, but...
I can tell you that all the Yirat Shamayim that I have, I've had to pray for over a decade for, like intensely. And so, like, on one level, so then you could say whatever level I have now, that means that up until then, Rabbi Nachman would say that to some degree my avoda before this is not real. Because you need Yirat Shamayim to have avoda, right? But then on the other hand, well, how can you say it's not real? Because relative to where I was, that was my level. And a few years from now, Bezrat Hashem, this level that I'm on right now will be like I don't have any at all. Hopefully, Bezrat Hashem. So that's what I'm trying to say, not to get so bogged down by a bechina as being the ikr, because even that is something which is on a spectrum and relevant and relative. Okay? But we'll get more into Yira. Maybe another tour that we'll actually more concentrate on. Then we'll do like a more full.
Is there a specific
exposition
sphere that it's specifically associated with? Or like,
yes.
Like
Yira is no. Yira is most directly connected to Malchut. That's Yira to Onesh. Yira is most connected to Gevura. That's holy Yira. That's holy judgment. And Yira is most connected to Bina. That's the higher level of Yira. That's Yira Lomamut. That's elevated Yira.
Sorry, real quick, completely. So the Malfum is this or this? Real quick, I apologize. The
What?
Malfum. Malepum.
Malepum is
This
what?
or that?
No, the Malepum is when there's that is in the inside.
Middle.
Yeah. Okay. And Yira also is Keter. So that's what I'm saying. We're gonna have to really.
It's like dust. It moves around.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look, and it means something at different levels in different places, and there's different revelations of Yira. They're different, whatever. So Bezrat Hashem, we're gonna, when we have a tour that focuses more on Yira, we'll do a deep dive. Okay.
Sorry for that.
No, you did good. Okay. V'ayidei chokhmah, don't worry, we're almost done. V'ayidei chokhmah yichiyeh, and through wisdom you'll live. So what's the whole ruach? The whole ruach of the tzaddik that's entering into you, that life force, that joy, that hope that he gives you, it's coming from his chokhmah, which is coming from his humility. So it's through the ruach of the tzaddik that's clearing out your ego, that through that chokhmah, the wisdom of God enters into you, and that's what gives you long life, that's what gives you length of days, which doesn't just mean physically. What it means more primarily means you're happy. Chokhmah tichayeh. Chokhmah gives life to the one who possesses it. Joy, life force, energy, motivation, excitement, renewal, all that's coming from Chokhmah. That's everything that you want. Everything that everyone's looking for is coming from the sphere of Chokhmah. That Chokhmah comes from nothing. Humility. Keter. Moshe. Amar li atzit lehu. He said, come, pay attention to what's going on under there. V'shimat Amrin Moshe emet v'Torah emet. Korach and his homies are saying, Moshe is the truth, and his Torah is the truth. And we are false. They've been saying this now for thousands of years, every Rosh Chodesh. They come up just to say, by the way, for 29 days they're in this place which is not nice, which is called Gehenna. For one day Hashem is rachamim on them. He brings them out because the Zohar says the power of Gehenna is nullified on Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat and Chagim. So where are they? What's happening to them? We're going to see in a second what's going on with them. So on one level, on Rosh Chodesh, they're coming back to this world because they're not now in that place. And what are they doing when they get here? They're doing Teshuvah. What's the Teshuvah that they're doing? They're admitting that everything that they tried to do in their life was a sham, and they realize after they passed away that it was all rooted in their own ego and they never saw it until they died. And then they realized that the entire time Moshe only wanted their best interest and it was nothing to do with him at all. There was no Moshe, it was only Hashem.
It reminds me of, I think it's Torah Chavtes that Rabbeinu opens up and says that Shevach of the Tzaddik brings someone to Das. He says it's another thing, but this is like exactly that. He says Simcha or Emunah. I forgot.
It's okay, you could throw out any of those terms.
No, but Dasi says.
Yeah.
And he says another thing. It's like a random thing, so I don't remember. But Dasi said.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah, he does.
That's exactly connected to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Shehen modin al emet, that they acknowledge the truth. Kik shemikarev et atzmo tzadikim, because like when he draws themselves close to tzadikim, kedei lekabel mehem ruach, in order to receive from them ruach, through this nishbar gava avodah zarah, it destroys the arrogance, the ego, which is called avodah zarah, foreign worship. Va'az makirin afilohim, and then even they recognize it. Meaning, these people who represent the absolute antithesis of life. They represent everything which was opposite to what Moshe stood for, which was to try to bring life to Jews through the chokhmah of God, which he received through his ayin, through his nothingness, right? So they, Shehem Mesitra Demota, Korach and his contingent, they all represent the side of death. And what do we say from the very beginning? That God's greatness is revealed when even those who are furthest from him realize how great he is, which we said represent those people who are holding in the Sitra Demota, the side of death, which in this case represents non-believers. When the non-Jewish world realizes that the Torah is true, that God is real, that's when you see that Hashem's greatness is really known. In this case, this is represented by Korach and his constituents. Now, interestingly as well, why did he misunderstand his role? So, Korach thought he should have been the Kohen Gadol, and it was given to Aaron. Why did he misunderstand that? So, in Kabbalah they explain that Aaron, even though he was a Levi, he was rooted in the right side, which in Kabbalah the right side is connected to the Kohanim, which is why they bless us with love. Okay? Which is also why they teach, why they're considered like the spiritual leaders of the Jewish people, right? That's all the right side. Leviim come from the left side, which is where music comes from. Rabbi Nachman speaks a lot about this. Music comes from the left side in Kabbalah. And Yisrael comes from the middle, which is why Mashiach is Yisrael. He can't be a Levi and he can't be a Kohen, okay? Now, Moshe was a Levi, and Aaron became the head of the Kohanim. And this also was why their behaviors and their modus operandus was totally opposite. Meaning why Aaron was so full of love and bringing people into the Torah with love, whereas Moshe was like Harif Sephardi Jew who was just bringing the Musar all the time, right? Just like Shammai and Hillel, right? Hillel represents the right side, Shammai represents the left side. But what did Korach misunderstand? Korach thought that Moshe was choosing Aaron because he was his brother, but Moshe understood that Aaron was like the archetype for Chesed, and therefore he was his soul was the soul of the Kohen, meaning that's what he was, right? Whereas Korach was essentially a Levi. The Yisrael speaks a lot about how Korach comes from the left side. His soul comes from the left side. His misunderstanding that was led to the whole thing, which is a very deep lesson for all of us, that literally all the problems in your life could simply come from you misunderstanding who you are and what you're meant to do in this world. If you have like just a misconception of who you are and what you're supposed to be, it can cause you to totally spiral out and cause everyone to go down with you. So what was he meant to be? He was meant to be Leviim, singers. And what ended up happening to his kids? They became the most amazing singers in the Beit HaMikdash. We have in Tehillim, right? The songs from the sons of Korach. And he could have been mamish like the greatest singer and caused the whole world to do Teshuvah through his left side, through being a Levi. Yep, the only problem was he thought he was supposed to be a Kohen. And he just didn't understand it's a whole different Bechina.
It's interesting because, like the way that, with the Ishpizin, for lack of a better example, that Aaron is height on the left side and Moshe is on the next side.
Right, so again,
they have opposite type of things. Because Moshe, he was very anav, which I think is kind of like Aaron in terms of being maida and giving in, being mavater.
Yeah.
And Aaron, you're saying, was chesed, so he was like Moshe on the other side, but also still.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It's very cross.
That's what I'm always trying to tell you. Once you start really learning Kabbalah and once we start bringing up these things, in Chassidus, they'll try to make it like one kind of like
but it's not
streamlined. It's not, and you can't really understand Rabbi Nachman's teachings as long as you think that they are, or there's a limit to what you can understand from them.
Right.
But the truth is that all of these things and all of these people, even though we say Moshe's Das, but then sometimes we say Moshe's Netzach, sometimes we say Moshe's Tiferet, sometimes we say Moshe's Keter, sometimes we'll say that whatever. Aaron is Hod. Sometimes we say Aaron's Chesed. How does that work?
It's like the sphere. Like today is Tiferes Shabbat.
Right.
It's a sphere within
Right.
a sphere
Everything
within a
is
sphere within a sphere.
Right. It's a principle of inter-inclusivity. There's a principle of inter-inclusivity which the Yisrael speaks a lot about, which is that every sphere is comprised of all the other spherot, and in every partsuf they all operate and connect in different ways, and therefore in one partsuf Aaron's the Chesed, and in one partsuf he's the Hod. So it's very complex. It's very deep. Anyway, for the purpose of what we're speaking about now, in this case, Aaron or the Kohanim are represented by the right side, Leviim are represented by the left side, and Yisrael is represented by the middle side. And by the way, very often I notice, and this is not for everybody, but I notice that Leviim very often have a temper. I see very often they're very good singers, and I see very often as well that they have a temper. And that temper is not a mistake. It's coming from the left side. That's their koach. And it needs to be sweetened. But that's where their music comes from. It's the fire that comes from the left side that gives birth to the music. Okay, Tov. So now, Perush Rabbeinu Shmuel. Okay? Marley, and he said to me, every 30 days they come up from Gehenna to here, and they say Moshe is Torah's Emet. Perush Rabbeinu Shmuel, every Rosh Chodesh, because every matter that there is in the world that exists, it has a root. And the shorish of Teshuvah, what's the root of Teshuvah, is Rosh Chodesh. So just as just to make it more concrete, if you look at the teachings of the Arizal, the different holidays, the Chagim, are connected to different spheres primarily. So just as a general klal, the Chagim are rooted in Bina. So let's say Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, they're revelations of the sphere of Bina. Shabbat is Chochmah. Chochmah, okay, is related to Chochmah, okay? This is the reason why Shabbat is greater than those days, which is like it's such an unbelievable chesed that we have Shabbat literally every single week. Hashem gives us a greater revelation of Him every single week, and these days, which are very unique and very short, in context of the whole year, that's actually a lower revelation, which is the revelation of Bina. Now, on the other hand, a lower revelation is a more felt experience sometimes. So therefore, even though Shabbat is higher, many people don't feel Shabbat as much if they're not holding in that place of Kedusha and Tahara. They won't feel the light of Shabbat as much, but they will feel it on Sukkot, and they will feel it on Pesach. They'll feel that simcha, they'll feel that joy. It's actually because it's a lower revelation, and therefore it's closer to them. You have to be in a higher place to be able to experience the or when it's coming from a higher place. Yeah.
In this dogma, the lowest part, the mouth, would probably be like a normal weekday full.
Yeah. Yeah.
And bring the Shabbos into it.
Right. Now, here's a very big chiddush, which you wouldn't think. So what's the keter? If the Chagim are primarily a reflection of Bina, and the Shabbat is primarily a reflection of Chokhmah, so what's the keter?
Torah.
Something you wouldn't think.
It
It has to be a day. It has to be a day.
We say again the whole
It's not Purim?
setup. We say this.
But I don't want to confuse, so not for now, no. But yes. But for now,
So
we're just pushing it to the side, okay?
Say the setup again to get the.
Okay. You have Rabbi Nachman saying right now, everything in this world has a shorish, has a root, has a spiritual root. And the root of Teshuvah is, and we're going to say it in a second, okay? But what I'm saying is like this. What's the root of Shabbat? The root of Shabbat is Chokhmah, primarily. Now, another lesson I might tell you it's Keter. It's also true, okay? But in this case, just follow with me. We got to look at each thing in itself. Shabbat is a reflection of the light of Chokhmah. The Chagim, the three regalim, are Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, a reflection of the light of Bina. And what is a reflection of the light of Keter? Rosh Chodesh! Rosh Chodesh. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Nachman said that Hashem gave me a secret that even our ancestors, He didn't give them to. Yeah? What's the secret? The secret of Rosh Hashanah. Now Rosh Hashanah also happens to be Rosh Chodesh. Interesting, no? When was Rabbi Nachman born? Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Rosh Chodesh. Okay? Now in Kabbalah, the Arizal says a big chiddush. Rosh Chodesh is a reflection of later Keter. Why? Because Rosh Chodesh is the Bechin of Teshuvah. And like Rabbi Nachman speaks about in the 6th Torah Likutey Moharan, Teshuvah is a reflection of later Keter. Okay? Teshuvah and Keter is one thing.
Jewish is a bit higher than Shabbos, yeah?
Yeah, in a way.
He says the Shabbos
In a way, the light which is reflected in Rosh Chodesh, which is the light of Teshuvah, which is its most powerful, is this new light, meaning you're going from total darkness and there's a renewal from that place of like darkness and it starts to illuminate. That's actually harder and requires a higher light than Shabbos, than the Chagim. And we know this, meaning from our experience. What's the hardest thing in the world? Start over again. The hardest thing in the world is start over again. The hardest thing in the world is get knocked down and get back up. What is that? That's the Korach of Rosh Chodesh. That's the Korach of Teshuvah. That's the Korach of the Keter. Now it's very interesting because all the different Chagim are most connected to a different tzaddik. So for instance, Pesach is most connected to Avram Avinu. Shavuot is most connected to Yitzhak Avinu. And Sukkot, a little late. Again, Pesach, Avraham Avinu, the head of Emunah, first of the believers, Avraham Avinu. Shavuot, Yitzhak Avinu. Why? Because we accepted the Torah with awe, right? He put the mountain over our head, so we received the Torah through Yira, which is Yitzchak. There's more connections there. That was Techiyat Meitim as well. Yitzchak represents that force in the future, that we will laugh in the future. He represents that redemptive, bringing back to life from death. That soul, his name is Ketz Chai. Ketz Chai, the Arizal says, means the end of life. Right? And what happened to him? He died, and he came back to life. Right? There's a lot of parallels there. Okay, so that's Shavuot, which we're looking forward to in a couple weeks, Baruch Hashem. And then finally, you have Sukkot with Yaakov, and there's a direct allusion to that in the Torah where it says that he was dwelling in the city of Sukkot, right? He went to the place called Sukkot, and that was the end of his spiritual journey, which is alluded to the fact that he represents Sukkot. In a deeper way, Pesach represents the mind. Shavuot represents the heart, and Sukkot represents the body, right? And it's connected to the different bechinas of it. Anyway, which is the tzaddik which is connected to Rosh Chodesh? Because now that we're saying it's root, even though it's more of a whole thing, it's like more of a mundane thing, right? You don't have the laws of Shabbos, you don't have the laws of Chagim. It's like a regular day, and yet we're saying it's rooted in a higher place because it's Rosh Chodesh, you're starting anew. Darkness is turning to light. A person has an arousal to start over again. No matter how far down I went, I'm starting over again spiritually. I'm going to try to get closer to Hashem.
Rosh Hashanah or just Rosh Chodesh?
So we're learning, obviously, that Rosh Chodesh is the koach, the main koach of Rosh Hashanah. Right, it's that starting over again. It's that same koach. So what? But in this case, what is Rosh Chodesh? Who's it most connected to?
David.
King David.
Because David, the whole thing, Mitzi Shabbos, you start over again. You go from Mashiach.
Rosh Chodesh, which is the light of Keter, is reflected in the lowest point through David, King David, right? The head is the beginning, is the end. The end is the beginning, right? That which is the lowest is the highest. So in this case, this day, which seems like the lowest of all the Chagim, it's not even a Chag at all. It's actually, its light is coming from the highest of places. It's the light of Teshuvah. That's the light of King David. Okay?
So which one's Yosef?
Oh, that's a good question. That's Hanukkah. But that's for another time, okay? Yep. Okay. So now, let's finish this Torah, because I really want to finish this Torah. It's okay, we finish the Torah? We've been in the Torah for a very long time. I want to finish the Torah. Okay? Now, everything has a root above, and this root above, what's the root of Teshuvah? It's Rosh Chodesh. Because Rosh Chodesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Haviu alai kapara. Bring from me atonement. How do we have the ability to do Teshuvah? So Rabbi Nachman has a chiddush from Nifla. You can't do anything unless there's a root above. So what's the root above for Teshuvah? With all the other things, it makes sense, right? What's the root of love? Hashem's love. What's the root of awe? Hashem's awe. What's the root of tefillin? We say Hashem's tefillin. What's the root of all these? But what's the root of Teshuvah?
Also Hashem.
What is Hashem?
Because he did Teshuvah because he made the moon small.
Oh. But
Oneness,
that's
unity.
No.
With
It's because Hashem was the first one to ever do Teshuvah.
He invented it.
He invented Teshuvah. People think that Teshuvah, like we say that Teshuvah preceded the world. Teshuvah is the highest thing. The only reason Rabbi Nachman says we can do Teshuvah is because Hashem was the first one to do it. Hashem did Teshuvah. How did he do Teshuvah? Because he made the moon small. And then he tried to appease the moon. And he couldn't. And then he said, bring a kapara for me on every Rosh Chodesh. Then I said sorry to the moon. Now why did Hashem do this? Why did he set up this whole paradigm? The same reason the Gemara says King David wasn't fitting to fall with Bathsheba. So how did he do it? To teach the Jewish people that you can fall to the lowest places and you can do Teshuvah and you can start over again. So because we know that the highest can do it, meaning the king can do it, the Mashiach can do it, so if the Mashiach can do Teshuvah, I can definitely do Teshuvah. And now we're saying, well, where does the Mashiach have the ability to do Teshuvah? Because Hashem did Teshuvah. So if Hashem says, I can do Teshuvah, you can't say, I can't do it. You can't say, I can't start over again. You can't say, I'm too big for that. I was too high and I got knocked down too low, right? I got to this place and now literally I'm like, of the pariah of society. You can't say I can't start over again because I, Hashem, am God and I did Teshuvah. This is a very deep thing. And this is also part of the mystery Rabbi Nachman says of Rosh Hashanah, is the fact that Hashem did Teshuvah on that day. Okay. Zebechina Teshuvah. And Teshuvah, Hazot Nishtal Shala, Bechol Nivra'im B'Rosh Chodesh. And the reason why people in the world, around the world, especially Jews, especially on Rosh Chodesh, especially when they start learning about it, you have this arousal. Like as soon as the month starts over again, you get this feeling like, I'm gonna go to a kever. I'm gonna go to the mikvah. I'm gonna do Ibodah do it again. I'm gonna try to do it again. I'm gonna go to Neitz. I'm starting over again. Where is that coming from? That actual arousal for Jews, that feeling that I have that I want to start over again, that I feel that I can. You think it's coming because the month's starting over again. Who cares? What's the difference between the 30th and the 1st? It's the same exact thing. It's not though. It's something totally different. You feel that reason for a good reason. Why? Because that was when Hashem did Teshuvah. So Hashem's Teshuvah is now permeating the soul of every single Jew on that day, and it's causing every Jew to want to change on that day, to want to start over again on that day.
Hashem did it Bechina Teshuvah on every Rosh Chodesh though?
No, now that original archetypal Teshuvah, which took place on the very first beginning of existence. No, that was Rosh Chodesh, and now every Rosh Chodesh, his Teshuvah permeates, that spirit of his Teshuvah permeates the souls of every Jew on that day, forever. Anything that happened once on one specific day becomes the archetype forever, for all of history. In this case, Rosh Hashanah was also Rosh Chodesh. And therefore, every Rosh Hashanah, you have that desire to want to start over again and change completely. And also, every Rosh Chodesh, you have that Bechina. Okay? So a lot of mysteries of Rosh Hashanah coming out. Rabbi Nachman says it's higher and greater than anything to be by me for Rosh Hashanah. Because of this, also Korach and his Kehila, they were forced on that day to have regret on Rosh Chodesh. Meaning they're coming up every 30 days and they're having regret. However, Teshuvah eino ma'il lehem. Teshuvah shouldn't benefit them. Why? Because Chazal say Teshuvah doesn't help in a person who is dead, because Teshuvah only helps in this world. So what does it mean? Every 30 days he's doing Teshuvah, right? So him being in Gehenna, that's what's his tikkun. But what about on Rosh Chodesh where there is no Gehenna? So on that day Hashem brings him back to the world and he does Teshuvah. Now, Rabbi Nachman says something unbelievable. The essence of Teshuvah is only in this world. And only a person who toils before Shabbat eats on Shabbat. And therefore, certainly, he's not nifter from his recognition of this truth once he's passed away. And therefore, Mehadra laho Gehenim lahacha, the Hashem brings him from Gehenim to here. Because even on the day that Gehenna doesn't have power, that doesn't absolve him from having that sentence. So how does he experience Gehenna on that day? He experiences it through that searing experience of truth, and that he lived a lie, and he promoted that lie to everybody else around him. That's his Gehenna. On Rosh Chodesh, his Gehenna is being molded to the truth, and that feeling of regret that he has, that's his pain.
MS?
Yeah.
It's a big part of Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah, I mean that's what Teshuvah is. Where's Teshuvah
Right.
get started
Right.
from? It's because you had some type of deeper recognition of truth. Your truth, Hashem's truth, the Torah's truth. It hits you in a different way. That's what starts the Teshuvah. And Apopi ain't Gehenna Rosh Chodesh, and even though there is no Gehenna Rosh Chodesh, like it says in the Zohar, the Gehenna of Rosh Chodesh, the Gehenna of Rosh Chodesh isn't except the Charata itself. It's the regret itself. The regret and the acknowledgement and the shame that you have. That itself is the Gehenna that you have in Rosh Chodesh. And this is exact language that Hashem is bringing him back on that day on Gehenna. Meaning bringing him back, which means Teshuvah. Right? To bring back means Teshuvah. That's literally what it means. Okay. And now let's finish the Torah. And this is the perush of how we started the entire Torah with the first pasuk that we started with. Ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lifneim. These are the laws that you should place before them. When Moshe Rabbeinu got the Torah and he brought it to us, right after Parsha Yitro, when he got the Torah, the next Parsha is Mishpatim. And the Parsha starts out by saying, Ve'ela mishpatim. And these are the laws that you should place before them. And Rabbi Nachman starts this entire lesson that we started months ago with this pasuk. And then he goes on, starts speaking out, hand clapping and dancing, mitigate decrees. And you're wondering, well, what does it have to do with that pasuk? Now he's going to bring the whole thing together. Because it's brought in the Mechilta. What does it mean you should place it before them? Chazal say, the sages say, that this is Hashem telling Moshe that the Torah applies equally to Jewish men, to Jewish women. The laws of the Torah have equal applicability. It doesn't mean that they have the same laws for each of them, but it means that the Torah is equally binding to Jewish men as it is to Jewish women. Because we didn't have known that then. We didn't know that for sure. Only when Hashem tells us, by the way, the Torah applies to children, it applies to women, it applies to men. So only because of that we knew it applied to those people. But before that, maybe the Torah applies to everybody, but its laws are only for men, or they're only for women, or they're only for kids. We didn't know. Everything was fresh and new from Hashem. He's telling us new things that we never knew before. So it comes right away, Hashem saying, place before them. Why them? Meaning men and women. That the laws of the Torah apply to both of them. Perush. That all dinim, now Rabbi Nachman is expounding this word dinim, which quite literally means laws, but actually dinim also means judgments, meaning like there's judgments in the world. There's suffering in the world that are coming from these spiritual judgments. That all judgments that are in the Torah, they need to be sweetened. They need to be equalized. Lashabot. So he's taking this world that men and women need to be equal. In this case, he's saying Kabbalistically that the male dimension and the female dimension have to be combined, which in this case represent revealed Torah and hidden Torah. Mordechai and Esther. Hand clapping and dancing. Only when Mordechai and Esther are married, only when revealed Torah and hidden Torah come together, only when hand clapping and dancing are unified, is decrees nullified. So this is the secret of Va'ela Mishpatim. These are the laws, meaning these are the judgments that need to be sweetened. How are they sweetened? By placing it before them, meaning by equalizing the male and female dimension, by equalizing revealed and hidden Torah, by equalizing and putting together hand clapping and dancing. Meaning, to unite Kucha Brichu in the Shekhinah, where in this case Mordechai is a reflection of Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Esther represents the Shekhinah, the female dimension, the immanent dimension of Hashem. So in a very unbelievable way, clapping my hands, I'm revealing the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when I dance with my feet, I'm revealing the light of the Shekhinah. And when I do them together, I'm uniting Hashem and the Shekhinah. I'm making a yichud between them. And it's the yichud of Hashem and the Shekhinah, of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and Adnut, or the Shekhinah. That's what nullifies all decrees according to Kabbalah. This was the chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov. This is why the Mashiach said, when everyone does yichudim like you, then I'm going to come. Because the Arizal teaches that it's the yichud of Hashem and the Shekhinah, that's what brings the Geula. Why? Because it sweetens all decrees. So now, but Chassidus doesn't tell you to have meditations on Hashem's name and the Shekhinah, bringing those letters together. So how does that work? So the chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov, the chiddush of Chassidus, is that it's through the learning of Chassidus and practicing the eitzes of the Chassidic masters, you are automatically causing these yichudim to take place. Meaning it's without having to meditate on it, it's through action. That's why the Baal Shem Tov's Chassidus is a higher revelation than the Arizals. Because the Arizals takes a very specific, very small amount of people who can actually do this thing, whereas the Baal Shem Tov took the exact wisdom of the teachings of the Arizal, and he found a way that everybody can live with those teachings and create those yichudim that the Arizal speaks about, that are very complex, that are very intricate, that are very intellectual, and he made them possible for every single Jewish man, woman, child, and elder. And how, in this case, are we doing it? Through clapping our hands and dancing our feet. When I clap my hands, I'm revealing Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. When I'm dancing my feet, I'm revealing the Shekhinah. When I do them together, I'm uniting them. So what happens on Purim, this is a Purim Torah, right? That's when we started this. Rabbi Nachman said, there's decrees that they want to put all the Jews into the army back then. Not dissimilar to now. He said, but Purim's coming, and the Jews are going to be dancing, and they're going to be hand clapping. As if to say, these judgments are going to be nullified through Purim. Why? So Rabbi Nachman took this one little sentence, and on one simple level, what he meant by that is this entire Torah. That is to say, that through Yichudim, that Jews do without even knowing it, on Purim, through their simcha, through their dancing and through their hand clapping, they are automatically going to unconsciously nullify all of those decrees. And now we can understand what's the connection between Purim and what's the connection between Sfirat HaOmer. Because what's the Ikar of Sfirat HaOmer? What's this epicenter that we're waiting for within these days to get to? We want to sweeten the decrees of these 32 days and get to the 33rd day, Lag BaOmer, where the Rashbi represents the tikkun for Rabbi Akiva and his students. And what do we do on Lag BaOmer? Dance and clap and sing. Music, right?
And go to Shem.
That same power. So we are going through many decrees, personally, individually, and we're going through decrees collectively. Everyone knows what they are. I'm not going to go through all of them. And you know in your own heart what you're going through. So good, we had Purim. So it'd be like, okay, so this doesn't apply to me anymore. So two things. First of all, it applies Motzi Shabbos, very much so, Lag BaOmer. It applies every day to Sfirat HaOmer. This is the reason why Breslovers, when you go to a Kehillah Breslovers, when they're saying Sfirat HaOmer, it's loud, it's raucous, it's with a lot of simcha. They take a lot of time, and it's like mom is happy. Mom is happy. Why? Because it's the same Korach of Purim is in those days when you're counting those days. Okay? It's all alluded to within this Torah. And that reaches its pinnacle, obviously, in Shavuot, which is the 50th, which is when Haman his plan turned on him. Because it's the full revelation of the Torah.
All those scholars are from Purim now. Used to be from Pesach. Now
Yeah.
So just have that. Who's?
Wait, I want to finish. We're so close. So close.
Very worth it.
This is the concept of Mordechai and Esther. Is that Perush ve'ela? And this is the concept of, and these, right? What's the beginning of the Pasuk? And these are the laws, right? And Chazal say in every place that is said, ve'ela, it's adding to what was originally. Meaning very simply, if a Parsha starts ve'ela, or if a Pasuk starts ve'ela, and these, it's linking it back to the sentence that was before it. Or it's linking it back to the Parsha that was before it. So what's, and these are the laws? It's linking it back to Matan Torah, which happened right at the end of last part, Yisra. Meaning, what are and these are the laws? These are laws of the Torah. So very simply, ve'ela means, and it's linking it back to what was before. But there's another way to read this. It's adding onto the beginning, but in this way, according to Chassidus, not in a good way. Meaning, tosefet v'ribui. Anyone who adds detracts. What's the concept of adding? This is the bechin of gava, arrogance, avodah zarah. Like it says, Lo merubchem chashak Hashem. Not because of your numbers, meaning the Jewish people, not because you'll ever be a big people does Hashem love you. He doesn't love you because you're a big people. It's funny because if you hear Christians or you hear Muslims, their proof for why they're true is their largest of numbers. Despite the fact that the veracity of both of their traditions comes from the fact that the written Torah is true. And in the written Torah itself, Hashem says, I bedavka chose you because you're small in number. I love you because you're small in number. Now that means physically that we will always be a small people, but even more than that, more essentially, it means because you're small in spirit, meaning because you're humble. It's your humility that I love. Pereshu gava. So therefore, when it says ve'ela and these, that's referring to arrogance. This is the concept of Haman Amalek. Like it says, Reshit Goyim Amalek. The head of the Goyim is Amalek, meaning he's the peak of arrogance. The tikkuna, and what's the tikkun? Hamishpatim. These laws, the laws of the Torah, Bechinat Ruach. Uruach Mishpat Meshive Milchama. And the Pasuk says, and the Ruach of the laws of the Torah, Meshive Milchama, it ends war. And we're going through a war right now. So we need to end this war. How do we end this war? Through Mishpat. What's the Mishpat? It's the Ruach of the Tzaddik. Where's the Ruach of the Tzaddik coming from? It's revealing itself through the revealed and hidden Torah, which we're getting on Shavuot. And it's through this ruach of the tzaddik it nullifies all avodat elim asher tasim lifnehem. And then man and woman is made equal, meaning all judgments are sweetened, all arrogance leaves the world, all avodah zarah leaves the world, all ego leaves the world, all through the ruach which unites the hands and the feet, unites Mordechai and Esther, unites Kadosh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah, and that's what nullifies all decrees. And just to finish, here is the general rule of everything that we said so far. Through the tzaddik, that he's the constant of ruach, remove the spirit of el acher. Like we said before, that when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, you have to enunciate the dalet, because if you don't, it can easily be a resh. What's the problem with that? Echad represents unity. Acher represents disunity. Represents not one God, but many gods. Represents ego.
Very easily mispronounce it also.
Yeah.
It says in the Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't say Echad
Right.
because it's another.
Right. You can very easily mispronounce it, but that's the whole point. Just so you can very easily misunderstand the Ruach of the Tzaddik. And you might think that it's the antithesis of Torah, when really it's the thesis of Torah. And you end up opposing it. Right?
What do you mean?
Meaning it's the ego clouds a person from thinking that he's connected to God, he's connected to Emunah, he's connected to righteousness, he's connected to Torah, and really he's very far from it. And the proof is, how does he feel about the tzaddik of the generation? How does he feel about people getting close to him? How does he feel about people going to him? If he's opposed to it, if he's opposed to himself going, if he's opposed to others going, so Rabbi Nachman says, so he's far. Kafirut, atheism. And through the Ruach comes clapping and hand dancing. Sorry, dancing and hand clapping. Why? Because like we said, it's the Ruach of the Tzaddik, it's in the heart. Once it enters into you and takes out all of the ego from the heart, then automatically the Ruach starts to illuminate the hands from hand clapping, Mordechai, and illuminates the feet in the form of dancing. Because through the tzaddik, which is the constant ruach, it lifts the feet up from the ground, and it illuminates the hands. And this is what proliferates faith, emunah in the world, and that's what ends the exile and brings the geula. And that's why it says about Yosef the tzaddik, Paro said to Yosef, nobody will move their hands or feet without you. Why? Because the ruach of the tzaddik is what allows a Jew to move his hands and feet. So anyone who connects himself to Yosef, he'll be able to move his hands and feet. He'll be able to clap and sing and dance. And if not, it's going to be heavy. Of course. Because without me, which is the concept of Yosef, so he's the concept of tzaddik, that's impossible to elevate and to lift up the hands and feet without him. And Hinei, behold, from the klal of Devarim, you hear, Shomea, Sheneglahu bechinat yadayim. And this is the question, this is how we're ending it. This is the question that Noam said. It was last class, the class before. I don't understand. If we're saying Mordechai represents revealed Torah, and that's the hands, and Esther represents hidden Torah, and that's the feet, but hidden Torah is very clearly higher than revealed Torah. The secrets of Torah are coming from a higher place than revealed Torah. It's not even a question, it's not a question. So if that's the case, then why are they in the lower part of the body? And if Esther is the one who's bringing the geula, then why is she in the feet and Mordechai's in the hands? How does that all make sense? So Rabbi Nachman ends by saying, like this: Nigla, revealed Torah, is the concept of the hands. Nister, hidden Torah, is the concept of the feet. Mordechai is the hands. Esther is the feet. And even that, the hidden, even though it's higher than the revealed, im koza, even with all of this, the revelation of revealed is in a place which is higher, because it's in the hands, meaning physically, it's in a higher place than the feet. Whereas the nister, the hidden, is below in the feet. The revealed is in the hands. So how does that work? He says this inyan is amok. It's very deep. How the inyan is alluded to in the Zohar. When the Zohar says Tanayim, the Tanayim, which are the the original sources of the Mishnah, right? They came before the Amoraim. That they're the sages who took the statements of the Tanaim and they expound on them and they explain them and they have dialectical back and forth in them in the Gemara. So you would say, who's higher, the Tanaim or the Amoraim? Tanaim are higher because it came first, right? But in this case, Chazal say, and the Zohar says, the Tanaim are in the thighs and the Amoraim are in the hands. So we have the same dilemma. If the Amoraim are in the hands, so that's higher and the thighs are lower. So how is this working? So he says it's the same secret. If you could figure out that, then you could figure out how hidden Torah is in the feet and revealed Torah is in the hands. Mikol Makom, the truth is, in a place that he's below, which is the place of the Amoraim, and the Nevi, meaning that the Tanaim really are higher, even though that they're in the thighs, than the hands. And he says that this is also the same secret that the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim, where Chazal explained, and the Zohar says, and the Kiveri says, that even though Nevi'im are higher, they are located down below in the legs, and the Ketuvim they're in the hands. So again, what is this? And with that, this Torah ends. There's the last part that is in Rabbi Nachman's notes that was not actually codified in the lesson itself, which is included afterwards. We're not going to do that part. You can look at it on your own, but it's pretty much a chazar of things that we learned before. So I'm just going to explain this last part. And this is not the whole of it. It's not the entirety of it. This is Torah 10. This is Torah. But this is one little simple understanding, so we can have a simple understanding of how it could be that which is lower is higher. So it goes back to what we were speaking about before. In the Sfirot, in a world above, or in the Partzuf above, if they're lower in the Partzuf above, but they're automatically higher than whatever's below it, even if it's higher below. So in this case, it's taught in the teachings of the Ari that the secrets of Torah are coming from the Netzach Hod Yesod of the Partzuf of Ze'er Enben, whereas the revealed Torah is coming from the hands of Malchut, which is the Chesed and Gevurah. Okay, so Chesed and Gevurah is higher than Netzach Hod Yesod, but it's only higher than Netzach Hod Yesod in its own world. But in relationship to the world above it, Netzach Hod Yesod is higher. So this is what it is. How can it be that Esther represents the secrets of Torah, who's in the legs, is higher than Mordechai, is higher than revealed Torah? How can it be that the Balei Teshuvah are higher than the Tzaddikim? Because in this case, the secrets of Torah are coming from a higher world. So even though they're the legs, but it's the legs of the upper world, which are automatically higher than the arms of the lower world. And this is on a very simple level, the secret of all of these analogies that we made. How is it that Ketuvim, which came after Nevi'im, and Nevi'im is certainly higher, why is Nevi'im connected to the lower part, and the Ketuvim is connected to a higher part? Because the higher part is only higher in the world below. So therefore, the hands, which are higher physically, they're only higher than the feet if they're in the same world. But if the feet are in the world above it, then the feet which are in the world above it are automatically above the hands in the lower world.
So who's the tzaddik that represents Torah?
What do you think? Gosh. Dude, what was the whole point of this Torah at the beginning? How did this Torah come about? After he said this lesson, Rabbi Nachman said, and now, can you just imagine being with him after he gave this whole lesson? This is one of the first lessons Rabbi Natan ever heard. It was his first Purim lesson from Rabbi Nachman. It was one of the first lessons he heard from Rabbi Nachman. He's sitting together with him, and all of these people are learning from Rabbi Nachman, and it's the beginning of their ikashrut to him. And their mamish are just totally rejuvenated. Their whole life is turned upside down. They're excited. They're hopeful. They feel alive. They can't wait to be Jewish. They can't wait to do the mitzvah. They can't wait to do Teshuvah. They can't wait to start over again. And everyone around them is like, oh my gosh, you fell for this, the greatest cult leader in the Jewish world. Like, this guy is a Meshugana. He's insane, right? And and then there's that, and they came back. These are very sensitive people, very nice, normal, sensitive people. And it was very hard for them to hear all these terrible things about, what feels for them like to be like they found their Yeshua, they found their redemption. And they came to Rabbi Nachman and they said to him before he said this Torah, well, what are we going to tell them? You say things like this. How do we explain what you just said? You said this lesson. Like, how do we go back and tell them what we just experienced? Rabbi Nachman says, when they ask you what you found in Breslov, tell them, Ruach. Now go back and read the whole lesson and plug the whole thing in. Okay? Everybody have a happy Lag BaOmer, a happy Shavuot, and Bezrat Hashem. We should see the coming of Mashiach, the ingathering of the exiles, the Chiyat HaMeitim, the receiving of the revealed and hidden Torah, the nullification of all decrees. We should clap and dance with the most unbelievable joy and totally unfettered and unhinged, and know that every time you clap your hands and dance, you're creating yichudim and rectifications and sweetening decrees, and you don't have to explain to nobody. Just tell them, when they say, what are you doing? You're acting crazy. Tell them, Ruach, Ruach. And lift your hands, look, lift your feet. I'm not doing it, it's not me, I'm possessed. Woo. Let's see what happens.